Wow, holy moly. That is me. And we just got 91,000 views in the last day on Jesse Michels' channel, which has a lot of new subscribers. It's very active, and he does a great job at production and the end produce of content. Of course, he chopped up my interview quite a bit, and this is the last time I appear in it. It's about at the halfway point, and then the rest of the whole thing is all Danny Sheen and him talking, which is I want to address some of the stuff they talked about because they didn't exactly include me in on this whole conversation with all these topics, and I didn't even have time to get into this in the hour and a half or so that I spent with Jesse. I think our interview was about an hour, maybe a little longer. Um, Maybe it could have been 2 hours. I don't know. I lose track of time in it, and I don't really um, clock it. But in any case, I was on Jesse Michels. This was on an aircraft carrier on the USS Hornet, and it was freezing on there, all metal hull, and it was cold as hell in San Francisco. I didn't really pack well, so I'm wearing my hoodie there with my Bigfoot shirt. I really wish I had worn a suit and been as nicely dressed as Danny. Next big podcast I go on, I'm going to have to wear a suit and really try to sell this a little better, work on my delivery of a lot of these topics and a lot of these stories because these are important subjects. Um, what does that have to do with anything? Okay. In any case, the whole end of this, they start right here talking about this, you know, very fascinating, the treasure in UFOs and all the buried gold in the Philippines and all that stuff. That there's tons of that's super interesting. I didn't know about a lot of that stuff, and that's always super fascinating. If there's tons of treasure and money buried in the Philippines or these other black sites potentially um, that they slowly tap into and sell covertly. That's weird. Anyways, interviewing a live alien at S4. I assume they're talking about this interview here, which was released in 1997. Um, Again, not quite sure who this guy is. This Victor fellow sounds quite interesting, and his voice, even with the deep, it almost sounds like Ed Fouché. But I don't think it's Ed. It almost looks like Richard Doty or something. And this is, again, what they do to him. The doctors come in. Yeah, okay. This is totally weird, but again, not something I would exactly have brought up. If we, it started off as like a whole documentary about JFK, and I thought he was doing a real good job diving into the whole JFK assassination and the Watergate and the there's tons more to that whole story we can get into with the Jolly West connections, not just to Jack Ruby, as he pointed out, but also to Vincent Bugliosi, who prosecuted the whole Manson case and covered up the CIA involvement in the LSD experiments that they were running on people out of the Haight Ashbury Clinic in San Francisco. I mean, I think it was Los Angeles. Um, but anyways, all the Jack Ruby stuff super fascinating. You know, his ties to the guy he was living with that worked at his bar, to their friend Laverne Crawford, and the fact that the proximity of Jack Ruby's house to the whole Tippit murder scene and all the JFK stuff. I don't really necessarily agree with Danny Sheen's overall synopsis. He thinks it was David Sanchez Morales as the top shooter on the grassy knoll, and I'm a little bit conflicted on that. I think Roscoe White maybe was badge man. It makes sense to have a police officer, but again, Roscoe might have been too deeply connected. They had to have someone connected to Oswald deeply. It makes sense because once that came out, the whole thing would be bungled. But the fact that these guys are there, I had pointed out Felipe Vidal Santiago, the Cuban umbrella, dark complected man with the radio that seems to be, behaving strangely, just sitting right down, not ducking for cover, but just they were standing up prior to the assassination right by the freeway sign. And this guy looks a lot like Roy Hargraves and Felipe Vidal Santiago, which are two guys who were involved in all those organizations that Danny Sheen was kind of talking about loosely, the Operation 40 and Operation Mongoose, and also the whole what was the name of the corporation there that was run by those guys? But yeah, Roy Hargraves and Felipe Vidal Santiago are pretty good ID on those two individuals. I'm a little bit conflicted. I like Chauncey Holt's story. I think that there's a lot to that, but I also don't necessarily know if I believe all of it. He is a good candidate for this tramp, although it could be E. Howard Hunt. I mean, it's hard to say. And then, of course, the other tramps and the identities that have been attested to that. I don't think the tall guy is Charles Harrelson. I just don't. It doesn't make sense. The whole idea that it was David Lamar Christ or Dan Carswell. That's a picture of Dan Carswell. That's not the same guy. And he just got home after 3 years away from his wife, and his wife was like so happy to get. There's no way he would take part in an assassination after what he had just gone through. That we just talked about the David Lamar Christ story. And there's the actual school book window from the school book depository building that was in D. Harold Bird's elephant trophy room. It was next to the elephant head in his trophy room. The elephant that he had shot on the 7th of December, 1963, just a few days after the JFK assassination. He goes elephant hunting in Africa. And that trophy room is definitely a giveaway for me as far as the connection between D. Harold Bird and then also his connections with LBJ to the assassination, and putting the hands of the assassination on the likely culprits, the Texas mob, which consisted of a number of these wealthy and well-connected individuals at the time in 1963. And surprisingly, they were involved in like 3 big things of the JFK assassination that link all the whole thing together. Is top secret aerospace programs. Again, Area 51, the U-2 spy plane operations that were being run out of Atsugi Air Force Base that Oswald was stationed at as a Marine in the Marine Corps. And the fact that he was being set up as this patsy and being sheep dipped as this communist and handing out communist literature, that whole link to the assassination links him to the pro-Castro groups, the CIA groups that were working in New Orleans at 554 Camp Street, that he had went there and was handing out literature for them, and they sort of were imprinting him and hanging out with some of these characters. And the other thing is a weird connection between everything. A lot of the people involved in the JFK assassination is and it's not everyone. I don't think D. Harold Bird was a homosexual, but nearly almost everyone involved, like from David Ferry in the Civil Air Patrol to Oswald's landlord, Ruth Payne, who's a lesbian, to the gay pilot, to Clay Shaw, the gay businessman from and then Ferry being a pilot in a liaison between New Orleans and Dallas, with a lot of these weird operations going on and connections that he had. And these sort of characters were used in the whole plot as just the sort of low-level operators of the whole plot, but definitely had help with the whole operation from great sources within the media and the powers that be in covering this all up. and the actual involvement of these Interpen was the name of the organization, Interpen, and Jerry Hemming is the leader of Interpen, and that looks like Jerry Hemming. This tramp is Jerry Hemming. I'm almost positive. People said it's Frank Sturgis. I think it's Jerry Hemming, or it could be the Umbrella Man. It's dressed very similar to the Umbrella Man, you know. So might have ditched the umbrella and gone. And who knows where this guy went? But again, them being signaled by that other agent too. The three tramps that were there. There's the guy that walks by them. This guy right here, in the very background of that is this shady dude walking by. The guy in the hat behind this gentleman who we've identified as Chauncey Holt, Charles Rogers. This guy is apparently Charles Rogers. That's what a lot of people think, that Tramp A is Charles Rogers. But directly behind Tramp A, Charles Rogers, is this guy, this figure that walks by them and seems to signal to them that, like, don't worry, we got this. We're gonna get you out of this, and everything's gonna be cool. Again, this guy Sturgis looks a lot like Charles Harrelson. There's a lot of IDs that people have made, through pareidolia or just similar characteristics that people have said that these are the guys. Again, people say that this is David Sanchez Morales, not Felipe Vidal Santiago on the knoll. But that looks a lot like Jerry Hemming in the picture right there, where you can see. So I don't know. It's just weird. There's a lot of debate over that. And then, of course, the idea that Oswald was set up to just take a decoy shot or a fake shot at the president and then run and was, be escorted out of the country to Cuba. Like, what would happen to his wife? I don't think he was involved at that level. From every angle, it looks like Oswald was being, basically set up and framed as this patsy, kind of unwittingly or unknowingly. And I don't believe he fired a shot that day. I don't think that the nitrate tests, for example, that were done on Oswald's hands and face, right? So he hadn't shot a rifle. I think he had nitrates on his hands, but no nitrates on his face. So there's all these weird consistency problems with the official story. Again, and I talk about the deep state and the same people that killed RFK too. This is a whole presentation that I have that you guys can go and check out. I'll link to it in the description below this video. And just LBJ there in his connections in Dallas, especially with D. Harold Bird, who owned the Texas School Book Depository building, and her being friends with the landlord of Lee and Marina Oswald, that just out of the kindness of her heart took in the family and gave them a place to live and took care of them. Just the story does not add up, and I'm not sure why she's never been really grilled on that deeper, and that she pretends to be this innocent Quaker woman who just goes on vacation to these countries and works with her dad worked with USAID, and she works with USAID and was working with USAID. People expose that, and that whole documentary about her. There's a documentary called JFKPain.com, and I was checking out Ian Carroll talking about UFOs and some of the stuff on Candace. Interesting what's going on with all the conversation on all this stuff. But anyways, the JFK assassination is one thing. I don't want to spend our whole entire time on it. The important things are the D. Harold Bird connections to Antarctica and the secret aerospace programs that Lee Harvey Oswald was apparently surrounded with his whole life and career. these guys that were deeply involved in a lot of the top secret aerospace stuff, which is, of course, the deep state UFO file, the real UFO file, not the fake bullshit Operation Mockingbird Media CIA version of the UFO file that is basically put out there in the public sphere and boosted up by the algorithms and the mindset of the public to really brainwash them on that whole scene. But I'm glad I got to mention the Joanides connections. I think Joanides file, the CIA file on Joanides is going to be key to getting all the information on all this stuff out. If we could know the whole full extent of Joanides' career, I think we'd know a lot of secrets, because these guys are these secret operators in the background who run all this shit, and you really don't know any of their names, but they're the government guys who do it and pull all the strings and get it all done. Stage assassinations of all who they need killed before they can tell. These are the guys pulling the strings behind the scenes of guaranteed of everyone that was killed in relation to the Kennedy assassination, and behind the scenes is got to be connected to Joanides in some way. This guy was on top of everything involved in the Kennedy assassination, and so he's got to be like the dirtiest of the dirty when it comes to CIA JFK assassination conspirators. Not to say that the agency was involved in the JFK assassination. It wasn't. It was this select group, this elite high group. I agree with that whole assessment of it, and the fact that the people that were involved had these deep connections and would later go on to make these other deep international world connections that would lead to other, top secret world events and stuff, which I went into detail. I talked about a lot of 9/11 stuff with Jesse Michels in that interview. I didn't go like super deep into all of it because I was just, but we'll see if that stuff gets published at a future time, but it wasn't published in this interview. And instead we got remote viewing, and we got the Alien interview from 1997, which I don't know why that's being discussed as relevant. And we got, of course, where's the Oscar Wolf? The Oscar Wolf thing. I don't know if you guys remember who Oscar Wolf was, but this is the whole Oscar Wolf interview. If you recall, here's Jeremy Corbell. That is Richard Dolan. I messaged Richard Dolan before this show, and I told him we'd be talking about this interview and this stuff on tonight's podcast. Asked him if he'd like to join, gave him the link. So we'll see if he's watching, would like to join and help clarify the whole, because I'm trying to get the whole timeline of what exactly happened, on this whole issue. And Danny seems to have some insights, but I'm not sure he has like the exact timeline together on this. But apparently Danny says that he's the one that found this Wolf guy. I don't know if I heard he was Linda Moulton Howe's guy. I didn't, I don't. Now Danny's kind of, is he Danny Sheen's? Where did this guy come from, and who why are these guys, why is Jesse and Danny Sheehan promoting this guy when everything he said is basically a copycat of Dan Burrich and Bob Lazar stuff? He's just like there's a lot of these guys that are out there that have copycatted these successful and popular UFO stories. There's people that are just super into all the UFO stuff that get into it, and they know it well enough that they can make up a narrative. I don't know the exact story on this guy, whether Corbell coached this guy and set him up to do all this, but his story does not check out. He says he was a CIA director. I mean, there's a list of all the CIA directors. And maybe I should play the whole interview and just pause it and show all the things that have been debunked with this. But you know, we had Area 51 guys like Ed Fouché and other guys. What this guy, yeah, Ed Fouché was alive when this guy came out and this interview dropped. And this was, you know, had to have been Corbell's early work in the field on this stuff. So the anonymous interview drops, and you know, we listen to it and analyze it and dig into all the stuff that he says. I mean, the guy's got no evidence, no proof, and his story and his timeline don't make sense. And I think we got Oscar Wolf's DD-214 as well. Let me see if because I know D. Dean Johnson, maybe. Some of these other guys on Twitter have done deep dives into this Oscar Wolf fellow as well. But I mean, his background in his military career doesn't match, doesn't fit. There's not a direct paper trail or any kind of proof or any FOIA on the guy. I don't think anyone's done a records request on him. We have Steve Cambion did a, I know I asked him to join us. I don't know where he is right now, but if we go to Truth Seekers, right, we can look up on Steve's channel. I know that he did a Oscar Wolf. Let's just see. No, anonymous. I think this is the one. Did Richard Dolan and Jeremy Corbell use a fake source to tell a fake story? Yeah. So all right, let's play this video. I'm gonna reshare this screen, and yeah, let's listen. Let's listen, shall we?
This particular interview we're about to do, this is a man who's in the U.S. military, who's had experiences, he says, relating to knowledge of ET, the ET presence here on Earth. We know he is who he says he was. This is a man who's in the U.S. military. We know he is who he says he was. This is a man who's in the U.S. military. We know he is who he says he was. Is who he says he was. We know he is who he says he was.
This next question comes from Stephen Cambion. He wants to know, how do you feel about your participation in this CIA deathbed confession interview? I'm unsure what that is, but many people keep referencing that in the comment section. Now that other researchers have proven, quote unquote, that man was not who he said he was and never worked for the military or CIA.
Oh, wow. I guess I should get up on top of that one. I'll just say this. Look, I met him. I met his son-in-law. I got to know his son-in-law pretty well. This man had been a witness back in the 90s for Linda Moulton Howe. Yeah, maybe he was just pulling a yarn. I mean, the way it happened, look, I can't know before I go in to interview someone every single way it's going to turn out. I can't be, you can't make me like apologize for if I make a mistake. I've made mistakes. What am I supposed to do? Go cower into a cave? Like, it just happened. So this man, if that's true, I promise this, because I actually didn't know. I wasn't on top of this. So I'll look into it. And if that's the case, I'll make my own statement. But the thing is, I never really knew what to make of it. I was asked in 2013, very beginning of 2013, to interview this man. I was told he was an important witness. I'm like, well, okay. It was actually Linda's case, and I didn't want to take it. But the impression that I got, which turned out to be not true, was that Linda wasn't going to do it. Turns out Linda just didn't know that it was being done. I think she would have easily done it. So I went up there. He was in northern Minnesota, and I went with a few other people. I'll leave their names off. The late Ron Garner, who he's no longer with us, he was the one who really pushed this case. And I was like, all right, well, I'll interview him. I did my best to get on top of it. I met with him. He was a very sweet man. I thought he was going to die in front of me, like during much of this interview. His health was terrible. But I will tell you this. I spoke to his son-in-law, who was a theology student at the time. These are these are good people. And the son said, yep, I've heard this man's story for years. He's never wavered. So all I did was I interviewed him, and I did my best. Sometimes the best isn't good enough. I didn't go through a detailed background check of him. No, I didn't. So if it's been proven to be a mistake, then well, these are the breaks. This is a man who's in the U.S. military. We know he is who he says he was. We know he is who he says he was. I didn't go through a detailed background check of him. No, I didn't. We know he is who he says he was. I didn't go through a detailed background check of him. No, I didn't. We know he is who he says he was. And look, I can't know before I go in to interview someone every single way it's going to turn out. You can't make me like apologize for if I make a mistake. I've made mistakes. What am I supposed to do? Go cower into a cave? Like it just happened. I didn't go through a detailed background check of him. No, I didn't. You can't make me like apologize for if I make a mistake. I promise this because I actually didn't know. I wasn't on top of this. So I'll look into it. And if that's the case, I'll make my own statement.
Well, we're waiting for Richard to come on and make a statement about this whole thing. And I'm also wondering why, Danny Sheehan is obviously admitted to, more or less in the in this interview, Danny Sheehan more or less admits to going to northern Minnesota with these guys. So, his name's left out of this, but he's apparently one of those guys that went there and did this interview with Anonymous, who's this guy Oscar Wolf, who we have people that did dig into his background and really do a deep dive on him to see if he was who he says he is. And it was basically a guy that watched a lot of Dan Burrich and watched a lot of Bob Lazar and had a well-crafted story about all this to fit his own it's just weird, man, how that Jesse and Danny could be duped by this, and why they wouldn't consult me about this if they're, I don't know, just a little bit confused. I think this was a good JFK thing, and just clipped out my JFK parts of the interview I did with Jesse, but I was not interviewed on any of this stuff. And in fact, I said I don't know if I remember talking about remote viewing and my whole views on that and the Church of Scientology, which is real interesting because Danny says a lot of interesting stuff about his affiliation with the Church of Scientology and becoming their lawyer and getting access to all their archives and all their files and stuff. I really would have liked to learn more on Hal Puthoff and had the files on Hal if I had access to all that stuff, but I don't know if Danny has all that stuff quite yet. But this is just an interesting connection here, because if these guys are all working for the Church of Scientology, this might have been, this is all a great way to have infiltrated all this stuff if they are deep state actors. It seems a curious set of circumstances. I just don't know what to say, because there's people that tell me all this Scientology stuff is really bad, and I've heard mixed things on it. I don't know enough really about it to make an opinion or really dive into all of that here, but this is just a little strange that they're talking about remote viewing and national security in Ingo Squan. And I think what really happened is that they had NRO and surveillance technologies that were allowing them to track things, and they didn't want people to know how they were doing it, and they wanted to actually throw them off the trail of how they were really doing the remote viewing from satellites and surveillance, where it's real life, real world data versus what could most aptly be described by scientific studies on the phenomena is people's imaginations and going inside their own brains, and to use their imagination to pretend that they're seeing things. So it's all, again, hallucinatory and very inaccurate, whereas you get high resolution data from a lot of these satellite surveillance methods and a lot of active, full-time 24-hour surveillance of a lot of sites on the planet. So that's more sensitive, and it just makes sense to me that they'd want to be able to leak this stuff out, and this would be the perfect way to do it to the Russians, so the Russians would be completely thrown off about how they were figuring this stuff out. They'd be like, are they really remote viewing all of our sites and figuring out where this plane went down and where it went with remote viewing? Is that really what's going on? And they still got people out there right now believing it, because if they used Hal and tricked him with these remote viewers to make Hal believe that these guys really found the plane with remote viewing, then Hal would obviously believe in it, and it would be part of the ruse too, and it would also fall into some of these people's hands too. So I don't know, and to say that the Russians haven't tried their own experiments with this, but again, let's try a remote viewing experiment right now with the audience, seeing as people. I'm gonna have you guys all remote view this random object, okay, which I'm gonna put in the paper bag. All right. Off camera, I got this object in my hand. I'm holding it right here in my hand off camera. I'm putting it in the paper bag. Now, I need all of you to concentrate as hard as you can, okay? And the target is literally right here. It's going to be right at the top of the room. Can't miss it. There it is. It's right at the top of my room. Okay, all you remote viewers, all you Peeping Tom remote viewers, okay? I'm telling you all right now, if you have the power, close your eyes and try to envision my package. Sorry. The package on the shelf right up here, that is right there. And what is inside the package? And just take a guess. Throw a guess out there. What's in the package? And I know some of you are saying the quasi crystal blocks. No, those are right here next to me, and I showed them off on the last stream. So that's a good guess, but they are not quasi crystal blocks. That is not what is in the package. And the winner will get an award, and it's not one of these either. It's not one of these fake awards. So just take a guess. What is in the package? Use your remote viewing skills. Again, is it just guessing? Don't just guess. You have to actually use your remote viewing and go into the I don't know. Maybe it's going to take too long. It'll be by the end of the stream. But no, there's definitely something in there. And, we'll see if anyone guesses it. Anyways, but I just think this whole remote viewing thing would be a great way for them to release targeted information on sites and stuff that they knew through a discrete source that would be totally discredited and just confusing to anyone who came across it. So it'd be a great way to leak intelligence and information, through a program like this, because again, stuff like this is like good counterintelligence, because it veils the true source of the material in a cutout, a counterintelligence cutout, right? Yeah, it's wild. No, I'm never gonna stop. I think about all this stuff tons of times, all the time, constantly. Until my brain hurts, man. But anyways, you know, I hope we can have a reconciliation on some of this stuff, because I don't know why they'd be promoting the whole Oscar Wolf thing without really. They didn't ask me about what I thought about the anonymous guy and Oscar Wolf, but I know that guy's not legit, because his story is just a copycat story of other people that we've investigated already and found to be untruthful, like Mr. Bob Lazar of the Papoose Lake fame and the whole story of S4. And they're talking about this S4 site as if it's a real thing. Well, there were two Site 4s. There were two places called Site 4. There was a Site 4 at Tonopah Test Range where they did ECCMs, the electronic countermeasures. And there was another Site 4 at Plant 42 in Palmdale. And that Site 4 is where the B-2 stealth bombers were made in the top secret section of the Lockheed Plant 42 Skunk Works plant. So again, the two classified Site 4s in 1989 when Bob Lazar comes forward, and neither of them are at Papoose Lake. There's nothing at Papoose Lake. In fact, we learned from Project 57 that the entire surface of these like dust beds on these lakes was bulldozed over and like collected in piles in a lot of places, and then like rain tarps thrown over the piles and just to prevent leakage into the groundwater, because all the radioactive fallout from all the nuke tests that are done out there in the desert of Papoose Lake. So it's so radioactive out there, it would be really hard to have a base, and it would be just death to the contractors for breathing, kicking up dust or digging into stuff, because the layer of everything is all so radioactive. As soon as you kick up that dust and breathe it in, you're like, get a toxic dose of friggin' radioactive contamination, and you're done. So anyways, the updated Bob Lazar timeline is this really great place to start your research into the whole Lazar case. Really goes into detail on this. And then the hangar idea with the a bunch of the aliens in it, that was like John Lear. I don't know if who John Lear's source was for that. I think Dan might. I invited him, and I don't know where he is. I'm gonna text him again and just make sure he knows. He might be taking a nap or something. In any case, I had in 1987, John Lear goes on the record with George Knapp and says that he's got a base that has 11 alien saucers out in the desert at the secret facility near Area 51. And then, of course, Bob Lazar comes out with the story that he got hired to work out there and was brought out there a couple months after meeting John Lear, and why he would get a job out there and they would allow him to with that kind of contact.
The other stuff
doesn't make sense. So I disagree with the Dan Burrish. In fact, I don't know where Dan Burrish is these days, but the Burrish Archive, this guy, he's got the whole story of the S4 and J-Rod, this alien that supposedly was the alien from the Alien Interview that they interviewed, that they had kept there, and they were learning all this stuff from. And he's a very convincing bullshitter and con artist type dude, but everything we've looked into with Dan Burrish just doesn't check out, and I just don't trust the guy. I don't believe him. I think he is he may even be a counterintelligence agent who's part of some type of deeper operation. for counterintelligence. He just seems like that to me. But again, I don't know. I get really skeptical of a lot of these people, especially the copycatters that have like copycatted one another. Like a Bob Lazar guy who comes across John Lear, sees him getting all these views and selling the stuff on George Knapp and the money that he could make off of it, and immediately, finds a way to get in on it and apparently dupe all his friends, like his friend, dupe John Lear and Gene Huff, because Gene Huff still believes him to this day that it was all legit and it was all for real. But again, I don't know. I've gotten a lot of hate, and I'm for doing this interview, and I didn't know it was going to be edited that way. When you do an interview
Violating his
channel, you never know how they're going to chop it up and what they're going to do with it, especially on these big channels and stuff. So yeah, I could have worn a suit instead of my the only clothes that I had brought with me out to this conference, which I thought was going to be a lot warmer. But whatever, it wasn't a bad interview overall. I think it's good to get some exposure. I got to say a lot of positive comments. I've seen a lot of people saying, I need to see more of me out there and doing these interviews, because some good research that we shared. But again, I only got in a couple bits about JFK before it really got like derailed. I feel with maybe you could have split this for almost 3 hours. You could have cut it right here, like you could have cut it a little bit differently at the end and then re-release some of this other stuff as an extended interview with Daniel Sheen, where he can share his ideas and opinions and thoughts on some of these topics. And then you could have done one with me separate where I could have shared some of mine a little bit more. I don't know. But anyway, so that's my constructive criticism on all this. And I'm really just preaching to other people, because I'm sure Jesse wouldn't care even if I told him. He does what he wants at the end of the day. So again, I just thank him for having me on and actually doing the interview with me and putting my name out there, name dropping me, where I get a couple, maybe some new subscribers, some new viewers. So anyone new in the audience out there, just type in new in all caps. Just if you came here from seeing me on Jesse Michels and never heard of me before, I'd like to just get a gauge if there's any people here that are new to the whole topic. I got 146 people watching, but those are like rookie numbers from what we used to get. We used to do streams with like 700-800 people a few times, but well, I think Jim Eugenio and these guys at the hearing are doing a pretty good job. Oliver Stone, these guys have been after the truth behind the assassination for a long time. They've been digging into it, and this is Jim from 1993. He's been a beast on the assassination and researching it for just a long time. And also Robert Groden, who's done some really kick-ass interviews. Robert Groden would be great for he's a little bit older now and stuff, but some of these guys that have just been doing the research for years and years, and really Robert was just a skeptic of the whole thing and was just going out and doing all the interviews with all the people, and he's the one that he got so much, man, from the interviews that he did. These forensic studies are cool too, but again, the real people that need to vet this are the researchers that have put in the time. And then of course I think dark journalist and Daniel List deserves a position on some of this stuff with a lot of the research that he's done into just got an extensive collection of videos doing deep dives into tons of making tons of connections between all these people that are really involved in this top secret stuff. But yeah, that's not really slim pickings, man. And there's a lot of great people we can choose from. It's just about choosing the right people that are really gonna get things done, and ask the right questions and hit the right angles, you know. But in any case, yeah, there's Danny Sheen is pretty knowledgeable. He's a very knowledgeable guy. I mean, he's been directly involved with some of the people, you know, that were really tied to the JFK assassination case and knew a lot of information. And he's definitely an OG and a real one too. I just don't know if I agree with all of his, you know, conclusions on the evidence and stuff. Again,
Yeah, on behalf of them.
Not that we have to all agree. You know, there's a lot of different theorists that I do agree with or don't agree with on different areas of the assassination. It's a big case to cover, you know, when you really get into you know, the Bethesda Naval Hospital, the history with the MK Ultra, and the jacket too. The jacket that wasn't Oswald's and had the dry cleaners tag from a dry cleaner in Los Angeles, which is where Crawford moved to Dallas from. Crawford was from Los Angeles and wore these types of jackets, and he was in that area because, you know, visited Jack Ruby's house a lot, and he was at, you know, Jack Ruby's apartment is like 2 blocks from Tippett's, where Tippett was shot. And so they have like Oswald's route, but then they have, you know, supposedly this is Oswald's route where he got away, and he ducked through these cars and took off his jacket to, you know, to throw off the description of the guy that shot him or whatever. And they found this jacket behind the cars, and no one knows who found the jacket. The trace of the evidence is suspicious, and then the jacket, it belongs to Crawford, not Oswald. So I have questions about who actually shot Tippett and why Oswald ran to a theater and seemed to be waiting there for somebody, or I don't know what he was waiting for it to get dark so he could escape easier. I don't quite get it. But the train yard there and the whole scene, I mean, the fact that D. Harold Bird owned the buildings, and then the connections between Roscoe White. I think Roscoe White was personally the shooter on the grassy knoll because of Gordon Arnold's testimony, you know, about the police officer that jumped over the fence and took his footage and stuff, and the Secret Service guys that he saw all around the knoll. It leads me to believe that Roscoe White was badge man or otherwise involved in the assassination. I seem to think Roscoe White was, because of the diary and because of what his son found and the confession. He had the sharpshooting skills. He had the training. I mean, it was just, and no one would ever suspect a Dallas cop. You know, it'd just be like they had their man. It was the perfect setup. So perfect way for the assassination to hide. I mean, they look who they used to do the assassination in the RFK assassination case. Okay, very important. They used a Lockheed Martin Skunk Works security guard with firearms training. You know, a rent-a-cop, a cop. So it's a very, very common theme in these black operations. Wouldn't be outside the scope of these black operations, right? If they're using a cop in the RFK assassination, why would it seem out of place for them to use a cop when they have cops all over they had all these people in the police force that were CIA that were planted there. A lot of guys in the Dallas police force turned out to be CIA that were involved in a lot of the stuff that went on that day. And then, of course, you have Manny Pina and Hank Hernandez of the CIA working at LAPD for the RFK assassination. So, and then Joseph Bush as well, compromising the whole for the attorney's office, just compromising the whole assassination investigation. And really, the Justice Department should have arrested these people by now and opened a full investigation into this. And the only reason that they didn't is that it was all coming up for review in the state of legislature in California, and the head of the DA's office in California blocked it. And the woman who that was actually a woman by the name of Kamala Harris. I don't know if you recognize that name or not, but that was the woman who blocked the whole investigation into these crooked, corrupt cops that were CIA, and basically destroyed the evidence in the RFK assassination and covered up the links that tied it directly to Lockheed Martin Skunk Works security guard Thane Eugene Caesar, who had his necktie pulled off during the assassination, and then can be seen fleeing the assassination with his necktie pulled off. Right, that's a key part of this. In fact, I'm gonna I don't have that slide in the presentation. I'm gonna have to put that in right after, because RFK pulls him, turns around and grabs, knows who shot him in the head from behind, turns around, and as he's dying and falling to the floor, and pulls this guy's tie off. And you can see this guy leaving without his tie, and he had his tie on earlier in other pictures. And then he goes back to retrieve his tie because he knows that tie ties him, literally ties him to the assassination. And but it's just strange that we know now that it was a Lockheed Martin security guard. They used the cop. The cop was the one that did the assassination. The real final headshot to RFK was the cop escorting him into the back room. And that's wild when you think about the JFK assassination and who Roscoe White was in his connection. He was a Marine in the Marine Corps with Lee Harvey Oswald, was stationed at Atsugi Air Force Base with Lee Harvey Oswald. They both come back from the Marines, and he goes to become a police officer on the Dallas police force, which is just wild, man. It's just wild that they would get these people and insert them in law enforcement and use them to commit assassinations. Just no one would ever suspect. It's literally the game of Clue, where you have to figure out who did the assassination, and they hide it behind all the people you least suspect, right? Oh, the unassuming landlady, and there's a lot of crazy stuff, and that I've connected between the JFK assassination, the people that did the JFK assassination, and what they would later do, and how it relates to the UFO file too, because it's all private aerospace companies trying to get tons of funding for their own top secret research, whether that involves reverse engineering UFO technology or not. They're trying to, some of it involved building flying saucers, some of it involved, building a lot of exotic technologies and other stuff, but it's all part of this machine of top secret stuff that goes on, and they're all heavily compromised individuals, which, again, you have freaking, what is up with Kash Patel? What is going on with they get into some of the stuff at the very end about the legislation, and they talk about how a lot of the UFO legislation was blocked in Congress by the people from Ohio were blocking it. The senators and congressmen from Ohio were blocking this UFO legislature because they're, of course, governed by their constituents, which are these Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Air Force Research Labs, and all these top secret contractors that work on all this stuff, and their paycheck relies on a lot of it, which is nuts. I really wish Danny Sheen would come on. I texted him at the number he gave me here on this card, and I'm gonna cover it up, but it doesn't turn out to be his number anyway. And yeah, the whole Battelle connection is crazy. I'm glad that he interviewed UAP Gerb, and I talked to him a lot about the Battelle connection in our interview, and actually that was cut out, all that. So hopefully that makes it into a future interview. I hope he clips a lot of that stuff up and includes it in a lot of future stuff. That would be cool. So again, I don't think he's going to include the part where I call Jeremy Corbell a shill and whatnot. But I guess Bob Greenier of Martin Fleischman Memorial Project and Bernie of the Crypto Alchemist channel and a bunch of other people are all going to be on all going to be at Tesla Tech this year. Okay, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tesla Tech and the Tesla Tech conference, but it's a fun time out in the desert in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's in August, I believe. So if I might go this year, I'm just making serious plans on attending. So I seriously plan on attending. So that would be cool if we get a whole bunch of us there. That would be awesome. I don't know. I'm going to see who else is going, and maybe we'll see you there. But yeah, let us know. And Bernie's going to go. And anyone wants to go, we're going to be having all kinds of live streams, and we're basically going to be the big media channels covering the whole event. So secretly, man, I guess he doesn't publicly admit that he's embarrassed working with Corbell, but he better be embarrassed, man. I'd be like, this guy is like leading on this is who's continuing your legacy, dude, for real. And yeah, Cash, I think we were talking about this, right, with Cash Patel, because you really think what happened with the Epstein? Why did he change on Epstein, and why did he just do a 180 from saying, the deep state killed this man, there's no way Epstein killed himself, and we're gonna, release the information and get to the bottom of this? And now 2 days ago he praised Bernard Kerik, a convicted felon, former NYPD chief, who destroyed all the evidence from 9/11. The guy should have been indicted and investigated as part of this conspiracy if he really wanted to take down the deep state. But he's taking photos with him in cowboy hats and being and calling him his friend and a patriot and a hero, and using all this kind of crazy rhetoric, which you don't use to talk about a convicted felon if you're the director of the FBI. You just don't. You just shouldn't be doing that. Period. Don't care who the guy is. But to do it to a deep state guy that you're supposed to be in charge of arresting, indicting, and taking out, and why these people are dying of cancers at age 69 is also a little bit weird too. I had a good friend of mine I grew up with die of brain and lung cancer at age 35. So it's not to say these things don't happen to people. I don't know if that's suspicious at all, but Bernard Kerik is definitely one of the guys that were cheerleading the whole January 6th thing. So when you talk about January 6th and the investigation that should have been done into January 6th, Kerik and Giuliani was, Carrick were right hand mans on 9/11. They were right there next to each other, walking through New York City. Instead of following protocol and going to the Office of Emergency Management and handling the emergency from that office they had set up prior to 9/11, they spent the day walking around together with a bunch of their aides and Hillary Clinton and the media in Ground Zero of New York City on 9/11. So Carrick and Giuliani should have been involved, were directly involved in what happened on January 6th, because they were like the cheerleaders, if you remember, in the MAGA crew. The MAGA cheerleaders that led to January 6th were Carrick and Giuliani, saying that, the election was, they were the main ones contesting the election, and saying that, it was fraudulent, and cheerleading on the insurrection at the Capitol. So again, the cheerleaders of the insurrection being so closely tied to 9/11, and you're not going to their post on 9/11, and instead spending the day in a photo op, which they would later use to one of them to try to make a presidential run, Giuliani, and then Bernard Carrick being nominated by Bush to actually lead the Iraq War invasion as the Iraq War Occupation Commissioner, and that role was then denied to Carrick because of his past connections with some Kuwaiti companies, which we talked about. Kuwaiti American Corporation, which just so happened to be a parent company and investor in Securicom Stratesec, the World Trade Center security company. So it's just like these guys, and then Carrick didn't get the job in Iraq, and that job was instead handed to L. Paul Bremer, if anyone recalls. Bremer was the guy who worked in the World Trade Center on 9/11, missed work the day of 9/11 to go on MSNBC and give everyone the first announcement of the official story before anyone knew what was really going on. He was, right there to tell us that he was the chair of the Commission on Counterterrorism at Harvard, and knew all about Osama bin Laden and these terror groups that he's been warning us about for years that they were going to attack, and they just so happened to fly a plane right into his office, just as predicted, just like he told us was going to happen. I think that Cash he must be aware now. He must be totally read into a lot of this stuff. And I think they told him it was all aliens. I think they really scare him. I think they really scare people with a lot of the alien stuff as the real reason behind it all. And I think that, that's the look you see in Cash's face, is that they told him some shit about some aliens or something nuts. And I think that he's totally been compromised somehow. Because why hasn't he used the FBI to go after any of these people? Why hasn't he arrested any of the criminal Democrats? Pam Bondi, same thing. She said she made this whole fake announcement thing with the they were going to release the Epstein files and give everyone the Epstein files, and they had, these social media people come on and get invited down there and hold these fake empty folders up. It's just ridiculous. It's just, and where's Lex Wexner? Or any of these other big names that, Bill Clinton and now we get Prince Andrew's accuser killing herself under super suspicious circumstances, and there's no one arrested, no one investigated in relation to that yet. What's going on with that? Why did this girl off herself supposedly in the middle of all this? Right. Yeah, it doesn't make sense, dude. Dr. Evil is in control of our government. You can't even get the people we elected in there to do the job, to do their jobs. That's how bad it is. I think it's I think it's just, we got scammed, man. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. We got fooled again. Say we don't get fooled again, but we got fooled again, man. Yeah, it's really crazy evil, how bad evil has taken over. And Yeah, well, at 9/11 terrorists were on CIA payroll as well. Turns out, according to whistleblower Kurt Weldon, former congressman Kurt Weldon, who was set up by the FBI, had his daughter arrested, and all this craziness, dude. It's just we got a new member, Teeny 4. Welcome to the party. Thank you for the contributions. If anyone wants to do super chats, don't do super chats, man. I haven't even gotten any of the money from YouTube, man. I swear I don't know what's happened with all of it. I think people gave me like $800 and I went and bought a ticket, and I'm thinking I was going to get the money from YouTube, and I never ever actually got it, you know. So if you want to look up Jeremy Rys on Venmo or Cash App, that would be the best way to support me. If you guys have extra support funds, you know, I think my Cash App is $, yeah, Cash App is $, Jeremy Rys, and then Venmo is Jeremy RYS. Is it dashes, or let me just see real quick. Let people know so that they can, they can find me and send me some funds, because it would really help out, man. Yeah, they literally steal donations, and I don't know what happens to the money, dude. But like, I was supposed to get $800 to fly out to go do this interview in San Francisco. And the only reason I actually got that interview is because of the money that people, sent, which I actually used money from my own savings account, thinking I would get reimbursed. But I don't think I ever got the money from YouTube. I never saw it in my account. So I don't know, man, what's going on with all of it. But I'm not making the money that I used to make from YouTube and from all this, which is another reason my streams have been less frequent. It's just I got to go to work. I got to make real money, and I don't have time to compete. How can someone like me, who's doing real research into real people and getting shadow banned by the government and the powers that be for producing, real content, interviewing real NASA scientists and talking about real science and real deep physics and topics which are just boring compared to, how can I compete with a guy like this fucking bearded idiot who interviews completely fake whistleblowers, makes up completely fake stories, and then how can you compete with someone like this? I just don't understand how anyone who's doing legitimate research and legitimate UFO work is supposed to compete with the machine that they have literally set up to occupy and distract people. It's just we're hardworking tradesmen, man, and it's like, screw them, man. I appreciate it, man. Anyone that can donate and wants to send me a little bit of cash on Cash App or Venmo, that's the way to send it to me. I really appreciate it. I took a lot of time and energy and money out of my schedule with a newborn child to fly away from my wife for a weekend to go to this conference and do that interview on Jesse Michels' channel, and only to, have him cut it up and drive it off a bridge for the last after the last hour and a half. I mean, after an hour and a half, it just falls off a cliff with remote viewing. Is anyone still guessing what's in the damn remote viewing bag? My target up here. I'm gonna open this up and show you guys what's in the remote viewing target. Okay. Let's do this. Let's do this. Are you guys ready? Same bag. Remote viewing target. Hold up. I want to full screen this. All right. Who remoted, viewed, and who didn't guess? Okay. Full screen. What's in the bag? What's in the bag? What's in my hand right now? What am I holding right in my hand? What am I holding? It's not food. It's not a box of matches. It's not a lighter. It's not a pen. It's not ketchup. Not an alien. Quasi crystal. No, it's not. We already went over. It's not quasi crystal. It's not my wallet. See who guesses it, man. I want to see who has the remote viewing powers. If anyone really does, someone legit. If anyone really guesses it, I'm gonna be like, all right, and we're gonna get you to go on to like a round 2. Who do you think will guess it? All right, I'm gonna give 2 more minutes, and then we're gonna see. Yeah, see again, remote viewing. I think it's a cover. It makes more sense to me that they had like some kind of sophisticated satellite imagery that tracked that plane, and they knew where it went down, and they used the remote viewing guys to bring the information out, because no one's guessed the correct answer. Oh, wait a minute. Dude, are you serious? Oh, someone guessed a figurine. Look at that, huh? It was Batman, dude. Can't believe you guys didn't guess Batman. And by the way, that person who guessed Batman was right. I'm going to Quantum Mystic. You're the winner. Well, Quantum Mystic, and also the guy who guessed figurine was also pretty close. Dusty, our newcomer, Dusty. So Dusty, that's pretty wild. You got that. Now, he guessed a Spider-Man figurine. That's pretty close. That's pretty good, man. You know. Anyways, yeah, that was a fun one, right? That was a fun guess. Again, there's a couple of the conspiracies that I just will not believe in, unless the world hide and seek champion of the world, Bigfoot, is really out there. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. What do you guys think in the comments? I'm loving these comments. Great chat out there tonight, by the way. What do you guys think about Richard Dolan saying that we could totally vetted this guy's career, and then admitting on kind of like a deer in headlights on Kurt Jamungal that he didn't properly vet this, and that and by the way, I'm partly responsible for feeding a lot of these questions to Richard Dolan. I mean, to Kurt Jamungal for a lot of these interviews, which he did actually. It helped a lot of his channel out, but it really it hurt his ability to get a lot of future interviews and stuff. But yeah, man, he still got to like really explain this one out, man. And then also, I'm just really curious why Danny Sheen and Jesse Michels think this guy's legit and haven't really done the research into this guy and his dates and his career and everything else, and find that no, this guy like literally copied all his information from Dan Burrich and Bob Lazar, and he was never a CIA director, never even worked for CIA, or and his military career is a little bit sketchy too. But anyways, I think Dolan got taken in by Corbell. that, you know, Corbell just assured him all this stuff, and he ran with it and went forward, and didn't check it, and didn't, just was relying on other people that. But I don't know. I'd really like to hear more from Dolan about this. You know, what went on with this? I really want to know more about the whole story. I wish that Jesse was a little bit more up to speed on this whole case during that, and interviewed him. Because if I was part of this, it's like a three-way conversation. Because I remember he was interviewing Dan Sheehan in a whole nother in another room during this time. Dan Sheehan was at the conference, and I was both at this conference. So we were both being interviewed at separate times. So I wasn't privy to any of the stuff in that interview. So he didn't give me a chance to really give my opinions or research in on that before he included that in on the presentation. So I do apologize for that to my audience that were a little bit taken aback by what is Jeremy supporting remote viewing and Scientology and this anonymous guy now, and the, you know, what to make of it. But yeah, thank you for the $5 super chat, Bobby, you know, Lane, and I appreciate that. And as I mentioned previously, anyone who wants to give me like a big donation and doesn't want YouTube to jack my funds and take a bunch can hit me up on my Cash App and my Venmo. We appreciate that very much. It really helps out, man. I've been putting a lot of work into all this stuff over the years, man, and it's definitely not paid off for me personally. It's ruined my life, essentially, in a lot of ways, just trying to get the truth out and doing the research that I've done. And you know, I did a lot and did what I could, but yeah, he's definitely young, but I don't know. Again, we're all gonna get old, you know. Age ain't nothing but a number, as long as you're doing your right research, right? It's all about sorcery, man. It's all about your sources and vetting them, and telling the truth never pays. Never pays, dude. You know, digging in and really finding real information and telling the truth never pays. It's true, man. But yeah, so it's awesome when some people do share their appreciation, man. It's gotten I don't know where the heck the Steve Cambion is, man. Yo, dude. See if he's gonna join, because Steve did some incredible research into all this stuff, and then man. Anyways, the anonymous guy, I don't know if I want to do the whole. It would be nice to show Steve's debunk on a deeper debunk on this guy. But you know, again, we've done a lot of this stuff in the past. This is all old news now. I mean, when was that anonymous interview released? Deathbed confession. I mean, 8 years ago. Yeah, 8 years ago at least. You know, it's almost I thought it was like a decade old. You know, but yeah, weird stuff. But anyways, this isn't what I was looking for. Isn't what I needed. And I'm sorry for getting so distracted and off track. Again, I wanted to get Steve on too, because I wanted to ask him to go through his opinions on the MH370 case and all that. But too bad that he wasn't able to join, and too bad that Dan Banker also was not able to join, because he's done a lot of research into Dan Burrish and the Bob Lazar and all that stuff. But yeah, this anonymous interview that came out, yeah, it was 2014, I guess. The Truth Embargo, the anonymous interview. It's not just about the lights in the sky, it's about lies on the ground. Right. Director and writer Jeremy Kenyon Lockyer. Yeah, okay, 4 names. It's terrible. This is the crap. This is junk. Can't believe what you've done. Again. Oh, Bernie's here. Welcome, Bernie.
Hello.
What do you like better? Yeah, let's take a vote here. I want to see what people think.
Oh God, that's a horrible choice.
All right, so start a poll. Carrie Cassidy.
Do you want to be molested by reptilian aliens, Cassidy, or do you want to be a straight government cowbell? Yeah, those are your choices. We are brothers from different mothers and fathers in different countries. We are not related at all.
Oh yeah, I love the polls, dude. The polls are fun. Man, what happened to our numbers, dude? I got 15,000 subscribers, and we just dropped this interview on Jesse Michels, and I still can't get over 200 people watching. Man, I don't know what is going on with the algorithms these days, but it's just
censorship for the fullest, 100%.
Yeah, it's got to be, dude, especially with the narratives that we're pushing here and talking about. I guess there's a lot of people that have put a lot of money into controlling the narrative that don't want that broken and disrupted or destroyed. And there's a lot of people that are willing to go along with it for the fame and the money. And anytime someone drops out, there's always someone willing to take their place, it seems. So,
right. So that brings up one thing we were discussing privately last night in regards to the MH370 case of calling out Edward Lynn by Ashton, and that this guy literally matches the leaker like charges from the military, and then Ashton calls him out and the guy illegally changes his name again. And it's like, you'd think he'd either sue if he wasn't involved with it, or like grift off of it in some way, right? Like apparently his one public post was he was struggling to get a job, and then it's like you have someone shouting your name, making allegations, and instead you change your name. It's very suspicious, right? It just like you'd think he'd grift off of it or make a public response or something, right?
Right. I mean, you could do the Bob Lazar thing and just say that, yeah,
I saved America. I was trying to leak the aliens, like anything, right? Like
make a war hero story out of it, and make up some bullshit. There's nothing illegal about that. But whatever. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There's lots of people that grift and do that all the time. And I'm glad that he hasn't done that, if that's the case. It just seems like a weird story. The thing that really stuck out to me with the connections that I've done, and I had that whole thing where I did the deep dive into the 9/11 stuff, but I didn't talk a lot about the Black Stone group. The Blackstone group was like Maurice Greenberg and Larry Silverstein, that whole cabal of the insurance groups. and stuff like that.
Interesting. It's a cabal of, well, I don't want to. It's not about race or religion or anything, but the fact that it's black raw, like right, like just like the black cube of the Islam in Medina. No,
The symbolism is certainly weird, but also the the connections are there, which is I thought was interesting. They talked about the Asian connections with the East Asia connections to the opium smuggling operation, and that whole group that's tied to the heroin trade. That was involved with the whole that was the part of the Cuban conspiracy with the JFK assassination and stuff, was like a lot of the drugs were coming in through Cuba and Miami, right?
Yep, it still does, and
it still does, right? That was like historically that's been like the conduit for a lot of that stuff, and the whole Cuba connection to that, and the Miami connection, the CIA connection, again goes back to this group with the opium wars, right, and the Rustling Company, and that whole connection that I talked about, the Rustling Company and Wirt Walker, right? Because we were trying to figure out who Wirt Walker was, and that whole line of the family that links to the World Trade Center Security Company. Like, who are these people that we still don't have pictures of that look like they have a history of just running nothing but CIA front companies? And this guy's like these Chicago lawyers and these attorneys and stuff, and they work in these investment banks, and then they run these companies which have all these suspicious ties to black operations and 9/11, and then it also links back to this whole heroin trade, which goes back to the JFK assassination.
So I have to just bring up quickly, I just did a private interview that literally is on the real Dead Man Switch, as the interviewee like recorded but requested only on his death it be released. But he was interviewing several of his friends that he had grown up with locally who went into Afghanistan and were now part of the modern day Afghanistan opium heroin trade back into America, and that he's like afraid for his life because they've all since died in their late 30s, as well as that his computer got hacked for the last like year and a half. I've known this guy for several years, and that like he went AWOL, and it's because a whole group targeted him, hacked his entire system, deleted those videos, and hopefully we'll be able to release parts of it and compromising his security too much. But it's an ongoing thing.
You have a compromat, post it immediately. Just don't try to use blackmail. Don't try to use it as a dead man switch or as a life-saving buoy or anything, man.
It's like I can't. I'm afraid to even say who and what he names, like of like politicians and stuff that he's got like evidence on. It's freaking wild. It's actually wild. I guess I'll have to just edit out some of the names and stuff, maybe, or something like that. It's like that when
it's crazy how they get control of the investigative body, they get control of the sources, the people wind up dead, and every single time, and then they get a hearing, they get their people in, insert their individuals into the mix, and then they just derail the thing and send it off a cliff. And it's happened time after time. It's one of the reasons I don't. And the whole thing, if it weren't for Danny Sheehan, I mean, he seemed like a real nice guy. Like it was I did my own interview with Danny Sheehan, and I have it right here. It has it's still private, but I did an interview with him privately, and I want to I'm gonna post this soon. once I get edited down. So I didn't get to ask him as many questions as I really wanted to. So it would be great to do a follow-up interview, because the real question I have for Danny is, man, why is he supporting Lou Elizondo? How much did Lou pay him to become his lawyer, and how did that all go down? Because I asked him a little bit about it, when we talked here, but at the conference, but I didn't get
What?
on
He's
film.
Lou's lawyer too, and Scientology? Like,
Yeah, that's the reason I'm
what?
like, what's going on with this guy? What is the the deal here? Because Lou Elizondo, of course, I don't know, Lou has a lot of lawyers. Lou has a bunch of other attorneys and stuff working for him and on his side, apparently. So I don't know how Lou has no money and is broke and struggling to get by, but has the money.
Because he's paying all the lawyers off, apparently, to stay out of jail?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Well, stay out of jail, or to harass the people who and threaten to like sue them for defamation for just doing research on the guy and posting what they find about Lou. But yeah, man.
I've got a question. Does Lindsey Gaiman, or Graham, whatever you want to call him, fit into this at all? Because he seems to be the acting president, and Trump is just a lame duck, because he said he's sidestepping Trump's attempts at peace, and he directly went over to Ukraine 2 days ago and said Russia is going to face unprecedented attacks. And then yesterday, the Ukrainians, with clearly Western NATO help and directive, got several of these container trucks, right? We've all known about the shipping containers filled with weapons and drones, and they got them to 4 separate far away Russian air bases that are their nuclear deterrents, and got 41 supposedly of Russia's strategic bombers. Like, by Russian nuclear doctrine law, they are required to respond to this attack with a nuclear strike. Like, that's their law. Like, if people don't understand this, like, we've never been closer to World War III. And it was directed by like Lindsey Graham going over there 2 days ago and initiating this.
Yikes. Well, let me just dig into this, because I'm not sure if. So that's not Bob Graham. Lindsey Graham's different than Bob Graham.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham's the old gay, I think, from the Carolinas, Republican senator. One of the biggest war hawks of the U.S.
Because, yeah, Bob Graham was the guy that met with Mahmoud Ahmed and of the Pakistani ISI or whatever. And there was some funding connection concern about that with there's a weird connection to 9/11 with Bob Graham, but that's different. Lindsey Graham, I don't know enough about him. But you think he runs the country right now?
Essentially, like, because he literally, like, either that or he needs to be charged with treason, because you've got Marco Rubio trying to de-escalate with Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, after this attack, saying, like, we're not responsible for this. We didn't issue or give Graham authority to travel over there. And Graham has directly stated that he's going to Congress to bypass the White House to put on 500% tariffs on China if they continue to buy Russian oil. So it's like he's completely undermined the White House and completely still pushing this World War scenario sort of thing.
So he was a judge for the Air Force Court of Criminal Appeals. Interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, this guy's have to dig into him a little bit and more than just reading his Wikipedia. But
He's definitely one to have on your radar and to do a full investigation.
yeah, definitely seems like. I mean, anyone who's
He's long deep
close
state.
friends with deep state guy like John McCain, you know.
Yeah, him and McCain were best buddies. They were
Yeah.
literally best friends.
Yeah, they were. So if his best buddy is, and then yeah, interesting what's going on in this country right now and how the deep state is transformed and also
Right, like Trump's being undermined in every single manner, like from having his most devoted guys of like Cash.
I think he was blackmailed personally. I think that basically either Trump had something to do with Epstein, that they have some compromat on him that they used, or either that or they basically threatened to like manufacture it with AI and said like people won't know the difference and that you'll go if we go down, you're going down too, type deal. So he's got to protect himself, because that's the only reason I think that Trump would be involved in any of this and hasn't like fully just started a massive arrests. I mean, because he almost, remember they convicted Trump in a court in New York, of rape.
Yeah. Right. So
it's absolutely crazy what's going on in this country, man. But yeah, I don't know if I still haven't made the decision yet up in my head if he's, but I guess it really doesn't matter if he did it or not, because they're still compromising him or using that against him, like basically if we go down, you go down too. But that whole Blackstone group, the fact that the Blackstone group bought out Freescale Semiconductor, that was in my opinion, a real big red flag for me when I was like reading, the buyout, what? On September 15th, 2006, Freescale agreed to accept a buyout for the sum of $17.6 billion by a consortium led by the Blackstone Group, based in New York City. Okay, Steven Schwartzman, Lehman Brothers, formerly, like a lot of these guys, and again, Blackstone Group is tied to the whole 9/11 conspiracy through the insurance companies, AIG, which AIG got its start as a big CIA operator.
Insurance,
big insurance scam, Chinese work with Cornelius Vanderstar and the whole history there. A lot of interesting history there. But again, the Blackstone Group being involved with the buyout in 2006, and then filed to go public again in 2011. Completed its initial property offering on May 26th.
So Gene Spliced is this true? Trump walk away from his winning World Trade Center bid in April 2001 and let Larry Silverstein win instead? Did Trump actually have the winning bid and walk away? That's pretty wild if that's accurate.
He did?
That's what Gene Splice is saying. Like, can we look this up? Like, if that's factual, that's about as red flag as you could get. Like, what? New Yorker magazine supposedly reported it. He's saying that's the source.
Well, they're both real estate developers,
Exactly. That's why it's possible, right? And he was based out of New York, so
doesn't sound too far off. Okay. Early 2001, Larry Silverstein bid of $3.22 billion for a 99-year lease. Another high-profile bidder of Vornado Realty Trust, Stephen Roth, initially offered $3.25 billion. Donald Trump also voiced opinions and had a potential role in the reconstruction efforts, particularly regarding design of the new towers, but he was not directly involved in the bidding process, according to reports by Wave News. Oh, interesting. I wonder if it was a misreport or
Misreport or an expunged report, right?
an
Like,
expunged report. Yeah, that's an interesting. Someone ought to ask him more questions about not, his whole. He
right?
remember that he's the one that went on the news and was like, "Yeah, this is state actors or something." That those buildings were
Yeah,
built,
back in the day, he sure did. He sure
you know,
did.
right on 9/11. That's was his first thought. It was pretty crazy. Yeah, it's and the insurance payout that they got for the 9/11 attacks is definitely interesting and of note. Of course, AIG with the reinsurance scams that they were running. So they obviously insured the buildings and then resold those policies through reinsurance scams.
Right.
And
So they make the profits and sell the losses every time, knowing what's
yeah,
coming.
it's pretty wild, man, how smart these guys are, what they can do. And then, of course, Enron, and then in Building 7, which is separate entity, I guess. But the Freescale Semiconductors and these scientists that were aboard, the 20 of its employees were lost. I don't know that all of them were scientists, but it'd be good to
Some of
find
them
out.
were the patent holders themselves, right? It's like, and then you've since
Yeah, there
found
were
those
a few.
patents.
So I'd really like to do a deep dive into more of that. And in fact, I had started doing that with a group of people, and we were looking into it. Did we have it on Sheets? I forget. I just want to see if we had it, because I think we brought it up on Google Sheets, and we were doing.
We do talk about solutions too, but we have
No,
to identify the main problems to be able to figure out the most accurate solutions. And
well, I think identifying those scientists and then digging a little bit deeper into their
yeah,
patent.
we don't want to lose our channels too 100%. There's certain things you just can't say or you get deleted, and that kind of would delete the purpose of us being here right now and what we're actually doing if we lose the channels. So, it's kind of catch
I
22,
know, it's crazy,
right?
man. But
Like,
also, we're on the verge of releasing some real serious stuff, too, with anti-gravity and free energy. And if that's like more, I don't know, I worry about that, because it's like when that drops, it has to really drop.
it really does. And they're suppressing us for these reasons.
Yeah, they definitely are. We're definitely way too close to the crown jewels, if you will, of a lot of stuff. And then of course getting the science ironed out too, because they can confuse us with a lot of disinformation and bullshit. But if we have the scientific knowledge and the skepticism, it really doesn't have the same effect on people that don't believe things readily, versus the people that take things and run with it. But yeah, I don't know, man. Let's what else has been going on? We got some cool comments. I got the Kerry Cassidy is 80% more reliable source than Jeremy Corbell.
I trust those figures.
Yeah, I trust those figures. I think the audience did the right thing. 9/11. What do you guys think about 9/11? I want to take a poll about what do you think about 9/11?
Inside job.
Inside job.
I will never forget watching it live, like in grade 11, before like going to school, and like just being in disbelief of like what we just saw is impossible. So then I was just like glued to the media, like watching all the inconsistencies live, and then how they got deleted and covered up, and it's just like there's no other way around it.
The possible physics of teleport. Oh wait, my website. Yeah, I gotta see about the website. I gotta check those again because I have to go through a different process to check those. Better off messaging me on Twitter on Hover Brothers.
Seraphim of Wrath stating put in jail for exposing his own part in drug smuggling out of Panama in 1985. With ties to the government, reach out to Jeremy or myself if you want to do an interview about that.
Yeah, anyone that's I would always
Any
looking for people
whistleblowers.
to interview. If you want to, the easiest way to reach me is at again, you can if you send me a Cash App or a Venmo and you send me a message on there, I'm definitely gonna read it, and I definitely can link up with you on there, and that'll be a great way to get my attention and let me know you're serious. But the other way is through my X channel, right, on X. So if you go on X at Hover Brothers, you can check me out there and find my DMs open for everyone. Anyone and everyone can message me. So, and the media totally going along with the narrative and really pushing that. Really sold it for a lot of people. 96% think an inside job, and 4% still believe the government. And I think that of those 4%, most of them are probably joking, just to be funny. Ha ha, 3%ers. Okay, very cool. I love the polls. I love all that. Again, we're almost to the 2-hour mark, and I'm getting kind of burnt out on this topic. Are there any questions in the audience that anyone has before we wrap this up? We got about 15 minutes left, so if you got a question, definitely throw it out. Don't be afraid to use all caps and shout it out, so I can see that you actually have a real question for us. And Sheen says no. I know that was weird about Sheen's response to what Jesse was bringing up and saying about the dude. He was definitely Jolly West gave him something, dude. Jolly West went there and gave him. I think he gave him something that Alexander Shulgin was working on at the time. Right, so that would have been the top researcher. Shulgin would have been the top drug researcher in the world at that time, right? He, of course, died in 2014. But Shulgin, during the 60s and 70s, was doing all kinds of crazy research. And he invented ecstasy, he invented a number of different drugs, psychedelics and stuff. And he said they had one that was called the Teacher. And he said the Teacher made LSD look like a multivitamin.
Oh, snap.
So if you gave enough of that to somebody, I think it would do the trick. I think you'd be Jack Ruby.
Oh, yeah. Question about how he's spoken to Joshua Bertrand lately. I'd been trying to reach out to him for the last year, but one of the last times he was on, like a year and a half ago, he said he was like terminally ill with cancer, didn't he? So
yeah, he did, man, and that was messed up. And you know what, Josh? Like, he had a big argument with me over the Jeremy Corbell and the jellyfish UFO video of all things, which I was debunking and coming out with and saying that what bullshit it was. And he's like, got all mad at me and disowned me over Jeremy Corbell, and I thought that was like really stupid because Jeremy Corbell's tried to have this channel taken down multiple times, and And you know what? Hold up. When someone get back to me, maybe they're gonna join. Where is he? Where is he at? Which one? Which one? Which one?
It's the Hover Brothers Twitter account. No, Jeremy did not sell out. He just lucked out by having an extra sock account that had nothing to do with the Alien Scientist. Thus,
Yeah. Just what I have to do.
it's what we all have to do. It's why I have 3X accounts. It's like just
Yeah,
to
the
get
shadow ban
access.
is and the censorship is very real. And
I don't think he wants to be. I think he is the gatekeeper. And Dusty was.
I don't think he knows he's the gatekeeper. I think he is like was selling quantum yoga and jujitsu videos, and that so he's basically tried to scam people for any grift that he can get away with doing, and saw UFOs as an easy market with an easy target. And he basically UFOs is his window to a world where he doesn't have to scrub toilets at his mother's apartment building complex to pay the rent. That's what Jeremy Corbell wants. And he wants to pretend that he remodels houses for a living. But yet he bought a fully furnished and fully remodeled apartment in Ojai, California for like 1.7 million with the money he made off the Bob Lazar documentary. So he's definitely got Mike making money off this, and he's definitely full of shit, and he'll definitely sell any scam possible, and he'll even go as far as manufacturing fake whistleblowers. You mean this new guy that he's got? Have you seen
All of them, every single one he's presented at. Remember, like him at the Congress here, and he had his little pentagon in his hand, and freaking like, none of them ever come out with a new story. It's all just like repeated the original lies over and over.
Yeah, these are all copycat people that have basically pushed the narrative story, the controlled narrative. They're basically limited hangout narrative people, and they will pop them up and create a new whistleblower and be like, this guy was involved and he knows something. And now they got this new this latest one on. Oh yeah, this is the guy right here. Let me bring it up. You seen this guy right here? Startled UFO seen on video. Apparently he doesn't have any evidence, but he saw some copy of something that was written by David Grush, and suddenly he's an expert and whistleblower.
Right. And what was Grush? Where's Grush's evidence? He was just the guy that was bringing up everyone else's stories, right? So it's like
it's a fucking
each new person is
man. It's past it's a baton race where they all just pass the buck to the next guy and just keep running in circles, right? It's really the Disinfo op is they keep it going. It's a circus, man, and I swear they somehow have the means to keep this all running, and then people like know that if they don't go along with it, or if they call it out, they won't be part of the they won't be part of the circus, and they won't make the money. And so it's like, in order to survive and grift and be part, to do anything.
And shout out to Cambion with the term the UFO circle jerk, because that's what it is, right?
Yes, it's called, Cambion calls it the UFO circle jerk, and that's exactly what it is. It's a bunch of these guys getting these jerk off circles, and if you're not down with jerking off the guy next to you, then you're not going to get a hand job from buddy on the right. So if you're not going to jerk off the dude on the left, then you're not going to get a hand job from the dude on the right. And that's how the circle jerk works. And we of course have paid no part of that. And me and Steve were just joking around on the phone. I called him before the show, and he's saying, like, imagine if we could have just been circle jerkers and been part of this. We'd have been retired already. We'd have made so much money. We could be retired already. We really could have. If we had, if 6 years ago in 2017, I had got on the grift train and I had sold my soul to the devil, I would be rich and retired right now.
No, you'd be freaking front page Gaia, freaking sales memberships and the rest of it, right? Like, be like alien scientist, head star of contact in the desert.
I should have just pretended to go along with it, man. I don't know what I was thinking, but I mean, I was thinking. That's the problem, is I was thinking and
Thinking
trying
about your eternal soul and honesty, right? And
just
credit.
information. I was just thinking that people actually, we want to get to the bottom of this. And yeah, I would hate myself. You're absolutely right. I would look at I would look at the house that I lived in and just be like disgusted with what I had to do to own it. Yeah, as personally, man. Yeah, exactly.
Or you'd have the Cash Patel eyes, right?
Yeah, I'd have Cash Patel eyes. Exactly, where it's like, dude, I have not slept in days, and it's because of the aliens.
Seraphim of Ras saying sent you an email on your Alien Scientist website, so hopefully that.
Yeah, no, I saw his message, man. Yeah,
So-
I'll check. I'll try. Hopefully, I'll try to get it and see. Yeah, and then they got all these guys, man, in the UFO circle jerk with the weaponized podcast that it is, dude. And the UFO stuff that they've pushed out has just been like the most easily debunked crap that man, it's pretty wild. In any case, any more questions from the audience? We're gonna wrap it up before we hit that. We're about 5 minutes out from the 2 hour mark. And guys, I'm gonna publish this little short interview soon. Unfortunately, it's just like Danny Sheen retelling a lot of stuff we've already heard him say before, and it wasn't a really impersonal, in-depth interview. I didn't get into any of these topics which we discussed tonight. I had no idea that any of that stuff was even discussed on the podcast. Because I wasn't in the room with Jesse Michels when he did those interviews with Danny Sheen, and of course he just kind of mashed it all together in the editing room. I'm not sure if that was fully him or if he's got a team of people that work for him doing
I
this.
challenged Jesse Michels to have me on because he claims he's an American alchemist, and
Well, you're the Canadian alchemist,
right.
too. So you guys were like, I don't know, you should either be working together or maybe you should be enemies. I'm not really sure.
Right, so I extend an invitation to like either come on his show or interview myself with my
Well,
extended.
you got to go to more of these conferences. I think going to Tesla Tech's a good start, man. You never know. Jesse Michels might show up to Tesla Tech and be there if we hype it up and we get enough people on board with coming to it. It might turn out to be like the real happening thing, and a lot of people might show up. But going to that conference that I did where I knew Jesse Michels was going to be there, that's the reason I got on his show. And I don't think if I hadn't gone to that conference, I don't think it would have happened otherwise. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And like out of your hour interview, you got what, 10 to 15 minutes in that 3 hours?
2 hour and 47 minutes. Yeah, I got maybe like 10 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah, maybe a little more. I don't know. Someone wants to actually time it, how much I got. I had a little spots in the beginning, but man, it's all right, dude. We're gonna get some good stuff planned. I got some great stuff planned, man. I got all kinds of guests joining. They don't always show up, but we can at least plan and we got some good topics coming up. But man, again, to see the grift. No, man, I didn't mean to put it. Again, these
we don't censor comments. We don't censor comments, right?
I don't censor comments, but the opinions of my audience do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this show or the hosts or anyone involved. So yeah, we don't censor comments here, and we're just here to get the truth, man. If Jesse Michels is working for Peter Thiel and they're all CIA Palantir stooges, then so be it. But I don't see that as the case. I don't necessarily. Jesse's his own person, and the people he's connected with are not him. Just so everyone knows that people are individuals, and that may work collectively together as a machine for certain ends and stuff. But Jesse's doing. he's doing it's a hard field to get into, man, and get everything right, you know. And just because you get some
Exactly.
things wrong and you don't friggin', have different opinions or different ideas as a new comer trying to navigate your way through this space, doesn't mean that you're necessarily a shill or anything like that. So I just don't want to I want to give people the benefit of the doubt until they get to Corbell's level or Elizondo's level, where it's been like, no, you're the one in charge of all this and the front man for the whole disclosure, and you totally failed us and let us down. That's the worst. All right, yeah, man. There's Alex Werner and a bunch of these guys. I'm going to open it up so people can come backstage and hang out for the after party. But right there, we're going to end it at the 2-hour mark. Thank you guys for watching, and I'm glad you all keep searching for the truth. Thank you all for joining me.
Much love.
Countdown to